as the executive director and co-founder of the LEAD agency. She is a member of the Cherokee Nation. Rebecca began working in Miami Public Schools as a counselor in 1978 and soon made finding ways to reclaim Tar Creek, restore the land, and protect the health of the people her mission. Rebecca holds a BA in Behavioral Sciences from Southern Colorado State College and a Master's in Education Counseling from Northeastern State University. When not fighting for environmental justice, Rebecca is enjoying her home on Tallgrass Prairie in northeastern Oklahoma and is a craftsperson in beadwork and baskets with a lifetime love of the arts. I first met Rebecca Jim earlier this year when Crosswinds News was doing a story about Tar Creek. She was and still is running water tests herself when no one else is, consistently educating the youth to train up the next generation of water protectors. It was clear then, and it's clear now, that she leads with both hope and urgency. Please join me in welcoming Rebecca to the stage for our keynote address.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor, and it's a real rare thing to be in a room with people that all care about water. A dream. So that's our Tar Creek, and this is a little introduction. We'll see if that works. Just to let you see how wounded this place is.
This is Tar Creek. It's one of the most polluted creeks in the country. It's been abandoned and we want it better. I'm Rebecca Jim. I'm a member of the Cherokee Nation and I'm the Tar Creek keeper. For 42 years, acid mine water has been pouring down this creek. Over 1 million gallons a day. It flows down the 11-mile course of Tar Creek and enters the Neosho River, which then flows into the Grand Lake of the Cherokees, a drinking water reservoir for hundreds and hundreds of people. I drink that water. Tar Creek flows into the water I drink, and it matters to so many people to have clean water. EPA picks out a concern. Their concern for our site at Tar Creek is lead. And in this creek running by us now are multiple metals. EPA is focusing only on lead, and they're doing that because it affects children and it changes their lives forever. It doesn't take much lead to harm and to steal a child's IQ. So any child that gets near it and gets that mud on their feet and traps it in their house can end up being poisoned by the dust that they brought in their very own selves. Lead can change IQ and it can make learning difficult. It can have lifelong effects on every organ of the body. In Tar Creek, not only lead, but also cadmium, arsenic, manganese, and other metals of concern. People are ill because of the exposures they've had at this site. This creek carries those metals. Tar Creek is not only a creek, but also the name of one of the largest Superfund sites in the country. This site affects all of the members of the Quapaw Nation, and we flow down and affect the Miami, the Peoria, and the Ottawa tribal lands. It flows on and affects the rest of the tribes that are designated for Ottawa County and end up hitting the Cherokee Nation. This creek affects not only the drinking water source it flows into, but where it expands and floods the community, it floods the town of Miami, Oklahoma. And when it does, lays out these polluted soils across playgrounds and front yards and backyards and gardens. It affects every plant that grows here. It is absorbed by every single tree and species that grow along this creek. There's not a creek in our state that's as damaged as this one. As a water keeper, we really want water that can be drinkable, swimmable, and fishable. And this water isn't. Tar Creek deserves to be clean, and that's what we want.
So, there's our county, and where the tribes that lay there are stacked like a stack of plates. Each of them, as you saw, impacted by this water body. These piles of this waste, I'd like to give you kind of the scale of the Tar Creek Superfund site. Just a show of hands, how many of you have been to Tulsa? That's how big the Tar Creek Superfund site is. It's 40 square miles. Many of those piles are coming down. Many of them are made of material that you could sell as gravel. Much of it is on Quapaw lands. The Quapaw tribe had the opportunity to take on the Superfund site, and they're the first tribe in the nation to take on a Superfund site on their own land. This is what's underground. And so we were doing hard rock mining, and they were leaving pillars that would hold the ground up so it's not to cave in on the miners as they were working. But as they were leaving, there was a lot of rich ore in the pillars, so the pillars were removed. There were no maps that showed which ones were taken, so that left much of that mined area at risk. It is because of subsidence and the risk of it that the towns of Pitcher, Cardin, and Hockerville were bought out and dissolved. So for generations, really generations, children have been using this material. It's been on their playgrounds, it's been in their sandboxes, it's been in their driveways in every alley in the county. It was used and enjoyed, not knowing that it would be harmful. There are sinkholes and acid mine water and contaminated piles, mine waste, and the risk of subsidence continues. There is no way of knowing when the next one caves in. I do want to tell you that what we found was one of the things we had to do was give control of their future to children. We had to teach them that they had to do what they could do to protect themselves. They had to do it, and it started with washing their hands. So we partnered with lots and lots of people to make that happen. But we did take on the rights of nature for Tar Creek because, well, we thought it was the right thing to do. Tar Creek runs right through the town of Miami, Oklahoma. And there it is right down the middle. And the dark blue in there is the regulated floodway. The light blue is the 100-year floodplain. The gold is the 500-year floodplain. Way down near the bottom, there's kind of a crisscrossy line that goes across. And right beside the yellow is the lead agency office. So we have not flooded, but on the right side, that's the Neosho River. And so Tar Creek flows into the Neosho River. And the way the reservoir, the Grand Lake of the Cherokees, is operated by the GRDA, the way they have operated the lake level, they have held that water long enough that, well, they've held it too long. And when there's a great deal of rain from Kansas, then they cannot remove it quick enough. And so the floods that we have back up on us. We are not flooded by flash floods. We see it coming. It comes back at us. And it's been determined by the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, that these are man-made floods and they are not climate change. The men doing this have names. So anyway, this is the other issue that we have. And so we have just completed surveying those people in that light blue, asking how many times have you flooded? What kind of damage did it do? What would you want to buy out? Would you agree that the lake level should be rising in a new license? So they don't want it to rise. They don't want the lake to have a higher level and be held at, because it would ensure that they would be flooded over and over again. I want to go back to the other thing we did. We partnered with OU and established an oral history project. So when we were doing those 400 surveys, we conjured up a whole lot of old memories that were hard for people. So we asked them, if you have a story, can we come back and take time to listen to that story and not have you cram it into this survey time? Let's come back and do that in a respectful way. And almost half of them said, yes, please do come back. So this, Brad Carson, I don't know if any of you remember him, but way back in the day, he really thought it would take an act of Congress to clean up Tar Creek. And he did put one forward, but it didn't go anywhere. And so what we've done through the years, of course we start with science, and then we've pivoted over to ensure that you can see the science, and that somehow or other you can engage with it. And we've done that by partnering with all kinds of artists. And so those artists began, we started with children, asking them to do just a simple thing. What does a Tar Creek fish look like? And then we asked them to turn it over and draw the fish they hoped they'd see, the fish of the future. We started with children, but then we engaged with photographers, those that are in college, they're doing their thesis work. We partnered with all kinds of photographers. J. Pat Carter, who's now doing so much work at the First American Museum. We partnered with Pawhuska, who taught at Texas A&M. We got over and over again different folks to come. And the last person we had come was a fellow named Matt Black. He came last year. And each year we have a Tar Creek conference, and I hope that all of you will come back to ours next year. but we introduced some of his work that at our conference this year, only to understand that same day that he was now listed as one of the he's a magnum photographer, and he got one of the Genius grants. So he's now one of the. So we partnered with writers and authors and poets, and then we looked and we started reaching out to the finest minds in neuropsychology and those that are studying lead poisoning and how it affects the brain, affects children. So we partnered with the Harvard School of Public Health, and they published many papers, and they found that our children, even as sixth graders, had a body burden still in their hair that they knew it was a current exposure of lead, cadmium, arsenic, and manganese. And I understand that manganese, with the Osage presentation earlier, that manganese is an issue that you may be dealing with here as well. The little known about manganese is that it can do the same kind of damage to children that lead can do. So pay attention when they say manganese is an issue. Pay attention to that here. We had an interesting thing happen. I'm digging. And we did get those children to write poems, and they wrote stories, and they wrote essays, and every high school student in Miami High School had to do a research paper, and so the only list of topics they could choose were environmental ones. And so they learned a lot, and they learned that they could tell their stories and they could get it published. So the Cherokee Nation helped us publish this little volume. And we didn't make very many copies, but one of them ended up on the table of a journalist at the Daily Oklahoma, Tom Lindley. And he hadn't been there very long, and he looked through it and he thought, how could this happen? These kids can't know this. They don't know this. This can't be real. So he came up and visited with them, and we sent him out to meet other people in the community, and the nurses and the doctors and the people with horses and the people that cared about the environment. We had interviewed them, and people, miners and all kinds of people. So he wrote all kinds of articles. He kept writing and writing. So he did a series that lasted 3 days in the Daily Oklahoma, and it started with the front page, and then if you opened the paper up, there'd be 2 or 3 more pages full of his writing. Second day of that series, the governor then, Governor Keating, he calls him the Secretary of the Environment, and he said, how could this be happening in Oklahoma? How could this be happening here? And so the Secretary of the Environment put his head together and said, well, maybe we should do something. And so he and the governor put together a task force, and they started looking at all the issues. We were a Superfund site, but the EPA was at that time asleep because they had done a thing and then they had left because it was irreversible, because you can't fix it. So they had done a thing, they kind of burned up an area to try to keep some of the acid mine water from going into Tar Creek. But they hadn't noticed that the beavers had found that. And they kind of and so they were fixed in a word. And the creek was still orange, and more water was still going in every day, and it was running down there. And so the governor put together this task force to look at all kinds of things. And that got the attention back of EPA going, well, maybe we're really not done. And then, oh my goodness, any of you ever go to Indian Health? Do you use Indian Health okay? Well, there was a little fellow in Indian Hill that wanted to get a better job. And so he was going to school at night. He'd get off work at 5 o'clock, and he'd drive to Tulsa to go to UCAT, if you remember what that was. It was all the universities kind of had a center there. And he was getting a master's degree. But this was before the internet. And so he had to do research in a library. And when he left, he was in classes after, when he got off work. When he got out of class, it was 11 o'clock and the libraries are open. So he was panicking. In order to finish his master's, he had to do something. So he worked at the Indian Clinic, and he looked through the records, and he kept looking, hoping he'd find something that he could write about. And he was telemarking anything that looked kind of different. And what he found was 1/3 of our Indian children were lead poisoned. And that's not right. But he only found that out, which is a whole other story. He only found it out because a new doctor, a woman, had come to work there. And all of these parents are bringing their kids in for Ritalin. You heard of Ritalin? Oh, yeah. Okay. And so she's asked, the doctor's asking the nurse, does she have a conversation? Why are they coming in for this? Do the teachers around here have unrealistic expectations? They just want everybody to sit in rows and just be quiet? You know, what's going on? And the nurse said to her, well, we're only about 5 miles from one of the largest lead and zinc mining sites in the world. And she said, well, what does that matter? And the nurse said, well, I've been reading about lead poisoning, and it's been identified as a link. It can cause attention deficit disorder, and it can cause hyperactivity and lower IQ. And so the doctor says, well, we'll just check every child coming in here. But none of them, many of them were lead poisoned, but their level was not high enough to be sent to the hospital. So it just went in their chart. And that's where Don Ackerman found them. All those children's charts showing they were lead poisoned. So he wrote his thesis, he got his A, he got his master's degree, he got another job. But before he left, he wrote one little letter, and I have it on my wall at the office, saying, I think we've got a problem here. Because of that one letter, because of that one concern, because of that one fellow looking through and finding a thing that wouldn't have found unless the nurse and the doctor had had that conversation. All of those had to be in order. And he sent this letter, and that's why EPA came back. They came back for the children. And they came back to see if they could help figure out how to lower those levels in children. So, we spent the next 7 years figuring out how we lowered lead levels in children. So we partnered with the health department, ATSDR. We partnered with all of the tribes and other researchers. The one research project did the Clan Mother Project, but we had to add Clan Fathers because the dads wanted to be involved too. At educating the whole community on how you lower lead levels in children. And that's you reduce their exposure because the EPA is not working fast enough. So we've got to figure out how we do it ourselves. What can we do ourselves? So how do you clean your house? How do you deal with dust? When you think the dust is not just dust, it's poison. So we did it. We believe we lowered lead levels in children. And we believe that people did speak up. And it is powerful, but it is not done. So we kept partnering with different writers, different people doing creative work. And so this, didn't bring everything. I brought a bunch of stuff. But this Earth Day, Dee, it's a really weird book. Because the fellow, Michael Nierenberg, he wanted to do two things. He wanted to go to a red state and deal with a blue state. He wanted two different damaged places. He wanted urban and he wanted rural. So we were the rural, we were the red state. And the other was a creek in New York City, Newtown Creek. He went and interviewed, he came to us, he interviewed, he visited with us, he recorded everything, and he did the most unusual thing. He went back to New York City and interviewed them. And then, basically, he must have done it. He must have just cut our stories all up. Because when you look through the book, it is like, that's how he did it. I said this, but he said that, and so that goes together. And it would have driven me crazy. But anyway, it's a powerful thing that people can take on an issue and try to make it better. Catherine Savage wrote this book, Ground Glass, because she ended up living across the fence from a polluted place that she believed caused the death of her father. And ground glass, that's what the doctor said his lungs looked like. She is, so it was wonderful to meet her. She traveled to Superfund sites around the country and to figure out how are we the same? What are we dealing with? And what are our lives like? So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing she's done. Then we partnered with people that just walked in the door. This woman is a poet from Wisconsin. And what brought her there? She knocked on the door one day, and her mother had worked at the Indian boarding school around just in the county of the Wyandotte boarding school. And she had spent so much time in the county and then went away and had a life in Wisconsin and wanted to come back. And what she's done is really tell our stories in such a peculiar, interesting way, personifying everything. Lead and zinc have a voice in here. Sinkholes have a voice. The creek has a voice. She gave us a voice. And then there's the musical. Because you can't just talk about this, you gotta sing it, okay? You gotta sing it. And so we had 3 young people from New York City called one day and wanted to come down and see what this place was like. They'd already done a lot of research. They knew an awful lot about this place. And so they did come. They had already written songs. They'd already had a template for what their musical would be. Sat with us, listen, share their songs, and improved their product. And then actually produced the musical off Broadway 2 years ago. So I would ask you, and I think each of you are already doing that, to be involved with your community, listen to your neighbors, and ask questions and seek out the answers. I already saw that today. You were asking questions and you were getting answers. And the people that have those answers may not always be in the room, but you can keep inviting them. You can keep bringing them in your room. They need to answer those questions. and there are answers. So that's me out in the creek. And what am I doing standing there? I'm taking down the dams that the children built. They stack up the creek rocks to make the creek deeper so they can swim in it. And they shouldn't be doing that. So we turned that problem into EPA saying, we need you to give us the evidence that this is not safe, that this really is not safe for children, that children shouldn't do this. And sure enough, they did evaluate. They found 5 different dams along this stream inside the city limits of Miami, Oklahoma. And they determined that, yes, the sediment is dangerous, the water is dangerous, and even it would be dangerous to picnic along the banks. So we continue to take those dams down. And the smiling woman there is Catherine Savage, the author. So we've gone to, this is the Quapaw Environmental Department's office. And again, one of the awards there that we do every year is we present the Mike Steiner Awards, because you've got to recognize the people that are doing the work that you need done. Who are they and what are they doing? And there's so many people doing that good work. This particular bunch of people are landscape architects from the Harvard Landscape Design School. And so Neil Kirkwood came down here 25 years ago, and earlier in his career, and he couldn't get this place out of his head. So the last 2 years of his teaching, he had a semester each year getting these brilliant students to come up with designs on how do we make this place better. So we've got landscape designs dealing with the environmental harm, not just making it pretty, but how do you deal with the harm that we are able to share. And they shared their stories with us. So this is our theme, of course, that all we want at Tar Creek is for it to be swimmable, fishable, and drinkable. And it ought to be. This is, I know you won't have time for this, but I wanted you to have access to it. This is another little short film. Do you want to see it? It's very short. Okay. If this will work, if I can make it work. Nope, I didn't make it work.
I can try to.
If you can. I got to be the voice of the creek. The creek had awful fit, and I got to be it. So she's you're doing it. So the fellow that did this came as a researcher 20 years ago, looking at you. There was a time before, way back, The mining that occurred around me was an effort to pull from the earth essential elements that were needed for economy and for winning wars. We were essential. We had beneath us essential elements. They left behind what they didn't want. They left behind what they couldn't use. They left behind what they couldn't sell. They left behind what they couldn't make money with. They left behind what harms me, but they left behind the stuff that harms children. And it flows down me every day. And it goes down my stream, my water flows into a river and then flows into a lake that people drink. And the fish that live there are harmed by what they put into me. They left behind the war zone that never has been repaired. If all the people that had come through all these years had all taken a bucket full of this stuff away from the edge of my life, I would be better. But they didn't. They studied it, they looked at it, they pondered it, they figured out what they could sell, how they could please people, how they could use that waste to benefit companies, to benefit a cheap source for the state to use. They've used it in every which way. So the Quapaw, Peoria, the Miami, the Ottawa, all got land that lay beside me. And I stained each of their lands now and poisoned the plants that grow along their banks. What's happening now around the world is the great search for new elements. These elements are in the earth, near streams, near creeks, near rivers. These areas are going to be wounded. They're going to be wounded like I am. These essential elements that hide near you will feed the new industry, the green industry of the future, and poison the people you care about. And what's been forgotten is that water itself is life and provides it without guile. Neighborhoods, tribes, peoples of the world are going to have to understand that they can be damaged for generations, for decades, if they allow their tar creeks to be damaged. I would say to every creek out there, holler as loud as you can to be protected. This is your moment. This last one is, I'm going to leave this with you. I don't think you want to see another film, but this is one that our kids did. Our young people during our summer camp took their own toxic tour and made their own film. So I think maybe you can forward out that link for everyone. So this is my wish list. Come for our conference next year, and thank you for allowing me to come to yours. Remember to be involved. I know I was sitting at a table that people are really involved, and I hope all of you are in whatever way you can. And believe in restoration for us and for restoration for your own damaged lands, though, and what lays beneath in the waters that need to be protected. And help us get that message out to other tribes to stop new exploration right now. There's a great risk for all of us in our future. So thank you very much. I would ask you to take on your own vigil. Protect the creek that you live nearby, and the river, and the watershed you live in, and what flows beneath you in your aquifer.
Rebecca, if you would be available to answer a few questions from the audience, if anyone has any questions. Starting with Shannon.
So I've been very interested in your story and how you started testing water and getting involved personally, you know, and doing all of your fact finding, etc. So for anyone watching this who lives near a creek that they love and care about, where can we start? Like, what can we do?
Yeah, I think you begin to be the observer. What do you see? How healthy does it look? Are there fish? Can you see creatures in it? Are there little bugs still in it? Is there life? And we took a group of students over to Tar Creek, right at the corner of, or at the edge of NEO College, and the Ottawa tribe is talking to the students, and they've been testing that spot for years and never found a live invertebrate ever. So look for, see what your own observation is important. And in this state, you see something you don't think looks right, you can call DEQ. You can just call them on the phone, say, hey, I'm a real person, and I'm seeing this thing. This is what it looks like. I don't know if it's safe. Come and check it. And they have been, they're depleted in how many people still work there, but they'll come. And if you give them your name, they'll give you a written report. And then you have the document that says what you've seen and the day you saw it and what happened because of it. And so the first day of my job as a Tar Creek keeper, the NEO College had a spill. I wouldn't say it was a spill. They took a hose and drained out their where they deal with the bus, where the bus barn kind of thing is. Ran a hose to the creek, so we turned it in. I turned it in, and I walked in to tell them, you know, that they can't do that. That's against the law. And we're still friends. You know, we're still doing. Our conference is on their campus, and so it doesn't break friendships. It makes us, I think, stronger because you're standing up for something that you care about, and you're going to make somebody else care. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Do you know America Meredith down in Norman? Because she used to coordinate Native artists for H2OK exhibits where we were doing art just about the water.
Hey, I don't know her, but I want to know her.
That's why I was saying.
I've
you
heard
two
of her.
would get along.
Yeah, okay.
And she's a big Cherokee.
My teammate at the table's going to write that name down for me.
America Meredith.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. We need allies.
Yes.
Allies. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much. It was a real pleasure.
One more question.
Okay.
I have one on my mind that you created that's brought to the material that has been harvested. Is it still there? Could it happen again? In your opinion is all I'm asking. And is it completely gone?
No, it is not gone. It's going to take several more decades before that is removed. The problem I have is that it's a commodity and it's sellable, and so it's being sold. And it goes into that other kind of environmental injustice, and so there's two different kinds of that waste. There's Indian chat and non-Indian chat. Well, you would know that, right? So the non-Indian chat is cheaper because there's fewer regulations. The Indian chat costs more because there's more regulations for it. You can't use it for as many things. But it's still being sold. Both the Quapaw tribe and some of the Peoria Nation had ore on their lands. And with the Dawes Act and allotment, some properties it's a checkerboard. And so some properties are tribal and some are non-tribal. So it gets complicated. And so the revenues from the chat is being sold, and for the Indian chat, for the Indian owners on that property, is divided by all of the owners, because that owner couldn't will it to just one person. It goes to all the heirs. Yeah. So there's a lot of there, but there's a lot gone, and a lot of it has gone to places that also still concern me. Yeah. One of the ways that that concerns me is in construction. And so wherever you live, you use the available resources, right? If you got a lot of rock, you're going to build rock houses. If you've got near a forest, you're going to build wood houses. You use what you have. And so we had a lot of this mine waste And so there was a period of time, probably 30 years, that the contractors that were building houses did a thing that they built the stem wall, and then they placed heating and air conditioning ducts down, and then they filled that void with chat, and then they poured the cement floor on. But when the chat gets wet, it can there's enough sulfur in it that can create a sulfuric acid that can eat through even stainless steel. And so then the homeowners, whoever's living in the home, can be exposed to that material blowing through their houses. So we discovered that in 1998, and EPA couldn't do anything about it because it wasn't just laying in their yard. So the standard for lead in soil has changed. So we believe we'll be able to open the door on that in the next year and see if EPA can help these homeowners find alternate heating and air so that they don't have to be breathing it. So it's just another layer of exposures that we know are happening.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for your
Thank you.
time and dedication. And if you could stay up here for just a moment, the Osage News would like to present you with some gifts.
We're very honored with Rebecca's wisdom that she brings, and she is also an honored elder. She was named an honored elder this year by AARP, and we are very thankful that you came to educate us today.
All right, everyone, it's time now